if you're really meant to do this, because this is a business where you have to have certain skills and traits to be able to become successful.
If you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you smash that like button and click subscribe. For those of you listening on a podcast platform, be sure to subscribe on whatever platform that is and leave us a rating if you can. The more likes, ratings, and subscriptions that we get, the more we can spread the message and grow our community. So we also have a free Facebook group. It's called the Average Joe Finances Network. Check us out, join the group, join the community, ask questions, and become a part of the team. All of our other social media accounts are listed in our flow page, and we have them in the video or podcast description below. Hey, how's it going, everybody? So today's guest is Charlotte Dunford, and she's the managing partner of Johns Creek Capital. Charlotte brings a unique perspective to mobile home park investing, as she comes from humble beginnings, being a first-generation American citizen and college graduate. After leaving China with just her belongings at the age of 16, she came a long way to now owning over 22 mobile home parks. Today, she shares her journey as well as her processes for finding trailer park deals, property management, and her tips for passive investors. Charlotte has great insights for anyone interested in investing in mobile home parks, and Johns Creek Capital is an investment management company which focuses on mobile home park assets. They currently have over $4.2 million worth of total investor subscriptions and currently own 22 mobile home park investments. So Charlotte, awesome background. Really excited to talk with you today. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks so much for having me.
All right, right on. So I want to start this off the same way I start every episode. And I gave a brief description about you and your background, but if you could go into a little bit more detail and tell us your story. How did this all get started?
So after I came to the United States at 16 for high school, I stayed with a host family locally in Pennsylvania for a short period of time until I got into college here in Georgia, one of the top engineering schools here in the South at Georgia Tech. And then after, I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur, have always been extremely interested in business. So I studied business at Georgia Tech and graduated with a Bachelor of Science degree in business administration with a focus on technology management. And after graduation, just like a lot of my friends in college, I started a job at a local technology company here in Alpharetta as a data analyst and business analyst. That's the first job right after college to put my analytical skills to work. But shortly after that, I started doing real estate deals on the side. I used my little salary fresh out of college salary to finance my first single family home. I bought a single family home in south of Atlanta. It's a big learning curve, and it was well worth it. And the second one, I started doing the second deal, which was a duplex, which turned out to be a really good deal. And then the story kind of, rolled on there. And after about a year and a half of working in corporate, I decided that I wanted to pursue my entrepreneur dream. So I just made a jump, took a pretty big risk, but it was a calculated risk and educated risk. I remember I had a pretty big commute every single day to and from work, 3 hours in total every single day. So that's almost like a part-time job if you calculate the 5 days a week, 15 hours just on the road. So during those 15 hours, I would be reading and listening to books, podcasts, and anything real estate or business related, just honing my skills in real estate. Apart on top of that, with my single family home and duplex actual management investment experience. So that really helped me prepare to take the jump. The reason I said it was a big jump is because my husband at the time was still in college as a student. So he didn't have a job, he didn't have an income. The little money I saved and the 401k I had for my 1.5 years of working was really nothing to live on, let alone launch a venture. but I decided that I had a confidence that I do possess what it takes to do this business, and certain skills and just traits that I have in negotiating, making deals, and perseverance really to make this a reality. So I took the job. After I quit my job, I got my first mobile home park in August of 2019. The reason I decided to go mobile home park even got my attention is because I'm a firm believer in the blue ocean strategy, meaning that escaping competition is really the only way to win, because you can't have that many players in a market to share a healthy return. So I decided to pursue something that not everybody was pursuing. Mobile home park in 2019, when I started, was really like ignored section. Everybody was into single family homes. Everybody knew how to flip a house. Everybody was pursuing multifamily, and the cap rate was just so compressed in those sectors to make sense of much of it. So I couldn't get into multifamily because of the competition of it, but I found mobile home parks. And that really became the Pandora's box for me. And magic happened after I found this niche where not anybody was pursuing. There was really a vacuum in the market at the time for people like me to go into. So that's why I chose mobile home parks. And within the mobile home park sector, I went with the smaller to medium-sized mobile home parks, because most, institutionalized investors like banks and Wall Street investors, they want to go into mobile home parks with 100 lots, 200 lots, 300 lots and above, tens of millions of dollars. But the sizes that I go with, it can range from anywhere from 5 lots to 30 lots, 40 lots. So those are smaller ones. And that creates a different niche. So this niche within a niche really provided me with the opportunity to make beyond excellent deals, because they're not extremely heated yet. Though right now in 2021 and 2020, the investor interest really grew, which brought up the prices, which means that the deals that I made in the last year was really grew in value. So fast forward to today, we have 22 parks under management. We acquired 22 parks, and 2 that's closing in a couple of weeks, and then much more to come in 2022.
That is super awesome. What a great way to get started. You initially started off your investing journey by buying a single family home, then you went to the duplex, but you were looking to get into something, even grander than that. And that's when you started looking at home park investing. So fast forward to where you were at in August of 2019. What was it? How did you find that first deal, and how big was this lot for your first?
So the first one that I bought was in my home state of Georgia, where I searched for this deal through a broker located locally in South Georgia. It's actually a pretty good opportunity, because I got this deal, I got the OM, and I did some research into it, and we actually negotiated a seller financing deal with, I think, 5% interest rate. I think it's 4%, 5% interest rate, a 30-year amortization, a 10-year balloon. So that's with, I think, 30% down, which is a very good deal.
Yeah, that's fantastic numbers right there.
Right.
Awesome.
And it was next to a power plant, which gave us plenty of leads for tenants. And there is a waiting list for every single home there, just because the job opportunity is only 10 minutes away from this large employer that employs, thousands of people.
Yeah. So how big was this lot, this first one?
That was 30 lots. A lot of them.
Okay.
It was actually, there's a high vacancy. The actual occupied ones was like 10, but the numbers still work great. So that's for the first one. I think it turned out. We still hold that one as making pretty good money for us and pretty good return.
Yeah, awesome. So when you went into that one, right, you had 10 out of 30 units occupied. Now, one of the things I wanted to ask, were these mobile homes rented, or were they owned by the people living in them, and you were renting out the lot?
Right, it was a mix. So,
okay.
The ultimate goal of a mobile home park is to transition from park-owned homes to tenant-owned homes. So we don't want to own them. We're in the parking lot business, not in the park-owned home business. The uniqueness about this particular park is that it does have a great migrant worker population locally to wanting to rent a home, and there is a housing shortage, extreme housing shortage locally. So that's why we decided to rent them out, because there's still great business there. But once this migrant worker wave, if it ends at all, we'll be trying to sell them on a grant credit program. So the ideal place to have all tenant-owned homes. And speaking of vacancy, most of our parks don't have this level of vacancy. That's the first one. And because of opportunities and good numbers, the vacancy made sense, the risk that we're willing to take. But for now, most of parks are 80 to 95% occupied.
Okay, perfect. So now going into this, you take down this first deal. How did you go from there to scale? Now, did you do this first one by yourself, or did you go in with partners? Like, how did that work?
Yeah, the first one was with partners. I had investors going into it. As far as scaling, just like scaling any business, attracting new investors, new customers was key. And just like scaling anything, we just kept on doing deals, delivering good results, getting referrals, and then the business pretty much bloomed from there.
Awesome. Okay, so now from August 2019 to now, you've acquired over 22, and you have 2 hopefully closing here shortly. That's quite a bit to do in just a 2-year span. So one, I want to say, fantastic job. That's awesome. To go from where you were at when you first started to where you're at now, that's just, you definitely can tell that you put in the effort and you put in the work. So what is it that you enjoy the most about going into this asset class and just taking down mobile home parks instead of, let's say, like an apartment building? What made you, I know you wanted to niche down into something that was less competitive, but what is it that you enjoy the most about it?
I think what I enjoy the most about it was, first of all, I was able to do deals at a good cap rate. All of our deals last year were acquiring at 9 per cap rate and above, and many of them above 10%, which is really unheard of in the apartment sector. And for someone at the time when I started the business, I was young and inexperienced, and in the seller financing. And then I would say at the time, apartment building was already saturated with many competitive and experienced investors. So there was really not a possibility for me to compete with them. The only chance I had was to go into a niche not many people were into at the time yet. So that's pretty much the primary reason. Is because I was able to do deals. And as I got more and more into the mobile home park space, I was able to understand how this sector works, and understanding that there is a big housing crisis in our country currently. And this is the part of the solution that solves the housing crisis. I think, the affordable housing for good, hardworking Americans, that really brings joy. And I think that gives us as a meaning to the work.
Yeah, so it's something bigger than yourself, right? Because you're able to provide housing for people and help people that are in unique situations, right? They're coming here, they're trying to find a place to live, and there's not many places available that's affordable. So you're providing an affordable housing option for many of the, like you said, many of the migrant workers that are coming over and just trying to make a living for themselves. So that's really awesome. And when you look at it from that perspective, that top down, that broader range, it just gives you like a better feeling on the inside that you're doing something that's helping the community and helping other people. Besides doing this to put money in your pocket, you're actually making a positive impact for others. What a beautiful perspective to have, right? That's absolutely fantastic. Okay, now, besides mobile home parks, we're talking about Charlotte now. Is there anything else in particular or other asset classes that you personally invest?
Right now, my trade is mobile home parks. And for all of our deals under Johns Creek Capital, as the general partner, we always put in our own capital. So a majority of my own investments are in the mobile home park sector. And another interest that I have is maybe storage building. I think I'm a fan of all the ignored sectors. So I think that's something that I'm interested in as well. So yeah, I do, because of this business, I do read up a lot and research a lot on different products, different financial products in the market. Why would people invest in this thing? So everything has its pros and cons. It just depends on each investor's interest and their risk tolerance, really.
Yeah, perfect. So you had mentioned self-storage. Is that something that you're looking into to possibly get into in the future?
Absolutely, yes. So as the philosophy of Johns Creek Capital is to go into spaces where it's not overly crowded, because we're in the business to make money. And for our investors, we have to deliver certain levels of return. So that's important to us. So we have to buy cautiously and buy at a rate where things make sense. And when it gets to a certain point in other asset classes, it just doesn't make sense anymore. So any asset class really that the profit margin for us to take, then I think that we'll be interested. Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. It's one thing to be investing in certain areas where you're helping other people out, but it's also another thing to make sure you're keeping everybody happy, aka your investors, right? You want to make sure that they're happy and that they're going to keep coming back to help fund future investments. So that's definitely important. So very happy to hear that you and Johns Creek Capital like really do your due diligence and research on any asset before you just jump in, because that's one of the things you definitely have to be careful, because it's other people's money at this point. So that's
Absolutely. Yeah.
definitely awesome. Okay.
Right, definitely. Yep.
Right on. So now for you migrated here from China right at the age of 16 with
Hmm.
just the clothes on your back and some belongings, as we talked about
Correct.
in
Yeah.
your background. Now,
Hmm.
when you came here, what was like the first steps? You got here, then you went to school, and I know you said you went to college, and then
Hmm.
from there, while you were in college, you actually your first job was as a data and business analyst.
Hmm.
You started taking the money from that, and I'm rewinding back a bit, but you started taking the money from that, like from your job, putting it to the side to invest and buy this first single family rental and then that duplex. What made you to like decide to just jump into real estate while you were working at a job, making a decent income, right? Because that's a pretty decent income paying job. But what made you
Hmm.
want to start investing into real estate versus going the traditional route of like a 401k, which I know you said you had stuff in that as well. So what made you take that leap?
So, as you can tell from my personal experience, I am not a person to follow anything traditional, really. So, a traditional person or a normal person doesn't just pack her bags and say goodbye to mom and dad at age 16 and jump on a plane to America. That doesn't happen with a normal person. So when I was working as a business analyst, of course, the traditional route wouldn't really make me happy. Wouldn't really not. I'm just not someone who would take the traditional route. So, with that said, the reason why I particularly was interested in real estate was because growing up in China, a communist regime where you, as a citizen, you cannot legally own any real estate. You lease it from the government for 70 years of your own apartment, and you have to give it back or you have to extend the lease. People do not really have any private property to their name. I've always fascinated with the idea of owning your own property in the United States. You can actually make that a reality. You own every single piece on your property that you purchase. So that idea really always, fascinated me. That I've always wanted to do something like that. So that's why I think real estate is a important, important part of, our business. And I think another thing, being Chinese, we have really heavy family values, and a home, a property, a house, apartment, whatever it is, somewhere to call home is always the most important thing in a Chinese person's life. People that I grew up around with, anyways, my family, my parents always extremely heavy value on property and real estate, even though they don't own it, but they still are gladly living in there. So I think that those two important factors, and then my, you wouldn't call it rebellious, but non-traditional approach in life really, contributed to why I'm doing what I'm doing today.
Fantastic. Yeah. So one of the things I wrote down as you were talking about that is you have to be a not normal person. And I don't mean that in a bad way. The way you were explaining everything is you didn't follow the traditional route. And then when you came here to the United States, it wasn't like, hey, I'm going to follow the traditional route that they do here in the US, and I'm going to go this route, work my job until 65, and then cash
Mhm.
out my IRA or my 401k and be able to retire at
Yeah.
65. No, you said,
Yeah.
hey, I packed up my bags at 16 to come here and start this whole new journey because I'm quote unquote not a normal person and I'm not going to follow the traditional route. So you
Mhm.
came here and
Mhm.
said, hey, there's more opportunity here if I continue down this path of not going the traditional route. So
Mhm.
I'm going to continue doing that. And
Mhm.
you did,
Right.
which is fantastic. That's one of the things that I guess the big takeaway I want to take from this is that you can't really build your wealth quickly if you're going to go the traditional or just the normal route that everyone else goes, that hey, everybody says, hey, if you do it this way and you play it safe, that you're gonna be okay at the age of 65. Not everybody wants to retire at 65. Some people want to live their life a little bit. They want to retire
Mhm.
maybe in their 40s or late 30s, and it's very
Mhm.
possible. It just depends on how much risk you're willing to take and how
Mhm.
much effort you're going to put in to do that. And the amazing thing is when I listen to your story, is you came here to the States and you went all in. It wasn't just, oh, I think I might do this. No, you came here and said, I'm making moves and this is what's going to happen. So that is
Right.
just pretty awesome. That's the big takeaway that I get from what you're doing. So definitely
Thank
want
you.
to say amazing. Now,
Thank you.
you're welcome. You're most welcome. Now, the other thing that you did that I thought was very fascinating is when you started investing in real estate to go out to all these different places, your commute, you said, was over 3 hours. And during this 3 hour period, you were reading books and listening to podcasts. Now, you were taking public transportation if you were reading, right? You weren't like driving your car and
No,
reading
yeah,
a
public
book because-
transportation. Yeah,
because
yeah.
I would say, hey, that's dangerous, and I wouldn't recommend that if anybody listening to the show. Don't try to read a book while you're driving.
No.
I've seen people on the highway doing that, and it scares the crap out of me every time.
Oh, yeah.
I don't
yeah,
know
don't do
why.
that.
Just get the ebook and listen to it.
Exactly.
But anyway, no, that's
Exactly.
awesome. So you were reading books, listening to podcasts, listening to ebooks as well, and just taking on and absorbing all of this information and this knowledge. You basically turned yourself
Right.
into a content sponge and just absorbing as much as you can. So that's another key takeaway from this is you don't want to just jump into real estate or jump into mobile home park investing particularly without doing some type of research and your own due diligence, because if you don't do those things and you jump in on your own, it's just like going into the stock market into a risky stock that you did no research on, or going into cryptocurrencies and going all in on like Dogecoin or something, and then you lose all your money. So
Right. Then you're not investing, you're speculating. Most people are not investors, they're speculators. Yeah.
Exactly. So the key thing to being an investor and being a good investor is actually doing your research. And now that also goes with if you're going to invest with a company as a passive investor. I know when we talked about your background, right, you talk about you have tips for passive investors, and I'd like to get into that. But before we do, for passive investors, which I'm a passive investor right now in a syndication, and the big thing for me when I went into that was knowing and researching the company I was going with. I had to make sure I was very comfortable and that the information they were feeding me was accurate, and that the returns and everything else, the preferred return, everything, that they really did their due diligence and they did an amazing job. And that made me comfortable as an investor to go in. So I think that's absolutely super important. So I'd like to get into that. What are some tips that you have for a passive investor that would maybe want to go with your company or another company that they're just getting into it and they have some cash and they want to invest it into a mobile home asset class? So what would you recommend to them?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the most important thing is to vet the sponsors to make sure you understand who you're going into business with. Because at the end of the day, the deal, anybody can make any deal, but the importance is who you're going into business with. And if this deal is solid, are your sponsors solid? Because bad sponsors can turn a good deal bad, and good sponsors can make bad deals good. So you really want to make sure that you understand. It's like any investor, just like any investor, you want to understand the company that you're going with. Just if you're going to invest in a stock, you want to make sure that is this company, how did it do last quarter, or what are people saying about them, and just do your due diligence. You have to understand what you're investing in. You're buying a product. You better know what the product is offering you and the history of it.
Exactly. It's the same thing like when you treat it like a product, right? Like you said, anything that you would purchase, for people that pay attention to what they eat, especially if you're like one of those organic food people, what's one of the biggest things that you look at before you purchase any type of food product? The ingredients. You want to look at, make sure that there's none of this and none of that or anything.
Exactly. And if a food product had a series of food poisoning cases, you probably don't want to go there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So it gives you like a better investment on your own body, right? Because you're investing in your own personal health when you're doing that. Somebody looking at what they're putting into their body, they're going to do their research on that. So why not do the same type of research with something you're going to put your money in?
Exactly.
Because listen, if you're going to invest your money into something with somebody, you better make sure you know who and what you're getting involved with, because you worked hard for that money. You don't want it to just disappear. Right.
Exactly.
Now, some people you could spend frivolously on things, which I know I have on many times in the past. And sometimes you buy something because you think you want it or need it, and then it turns out it was just a waste of money. And you could do the same thing with an investment. Right. You can say, hey, I really want this because I want to be involved in A, B, C, or D. and I'm gonna dump $25,000 or $50,000 into this because I want to be a part of this team and a part of this deal. But you didn't research them, that could spell bad news for you in the future. You might get lucky, but you might not. So definitely do your due diligence. So, all right.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. Now, besides the tips for passive investors, what do you have any tips or tricks for somebody that may want to get started in real estate just in general, like a brand new baby, they just got out of debt, or somebody in a similar situation to you, they moved to the United States looking for something new and fresh, and they want to get started in real estate? What would you recommend to somebody coming over here right now or just getting?
In my shoes, it took me, I think, it took me over 10 years to become an American citizen. So first of all, you want to make sure you have the legal to conduct business in the United States. You cannot just come over here and do your thing. That would be illegal. So absolutely, we must respect all laws in the United States. And that's what makes our country great, make our society great. And that the American culture and society rewards honesty and law-abiding citizens. So that's number one. And number two, if you are brand new and you've been here and you want to start your own thing, I would say first thing is to really have an education to understand how things work, because without knowledge, you don't have any, and you don't even know how to acquire deals. And you can learn as you go, but you have to have some sort of basic understanding of business and real estate in general. And then number three, I would say, is to have confidence in yourself and really have a self-assessment to understand if you're really meant to do this, because this is a business where you have to have certain skills and traits to be able to become successful in this business. So those are the three things I would recommend for sure.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Especially that last one. Have confidence in yourself. That's huge, right? If you're going into this half fully invested, or not fully invested, but like half invested instead of being fully vested in this, then you could be setting yourself up for failure. So absolutely. Now, I have another question I want to ask you, because you were doing this 3-hour commute and you were listening to books, reading books, and listening to podcasts. Do you have a favorite business, investing, or real estate related book and or podcast?
So my favorite book of all time is called From Zero to One by Peter Thiel. He is a Silicon Valley investor, co-founder of PayPal, works alongside with Elon Musk in the earlier periods of PayPal. And he has so many really successful businesses, one of the most successful Silicon Valley investors out there. And his philosophy of From Zero to One really talks about that there's only one reason businesses fail, is because they fail to escape competition. And that philosophy really resonated with me and is pretty much how I conduct my business.
Yes, that's fantastic. That sounds like a great book. I have not read that, but I'm adding it to my list. Definitely sounds awesome. All right. So Charlotte, now we've had a great conversation about your journey, what you're doing, and how people can get into this, right? Now, people might want to know a little bit more about you or find out more information about you and Johns Creek Capital. So where can people do that? Where can people find more information about you and your team? Do you have a website or social media pages that they can follow?
Yeah, absolutely. The best way to get in touch with me is to go to our website at johnscreekcapital.com and click on the contact us and fill out the form, and I'll be right in touch.
All right, that's easy enough. So for those of you listening right now, don't try to write that down if you're driving, but we'll make sure that link is in the show notes and that you can find any additional information that you need on Charlotte. And Charlotte, this has been an absolutely fun interview. You have an amazing journey, just talking about from where you started in the beginning to where you're at now. I'm wishing you the best of luck. By the time this episode airs, those other 2 deals would have closed. So congratulations on all that, and congratulations on all of your success. It was definitely a pleasure speaking with you today.
Same here. Thank you very much.
All right, on. Aloha. Thank you for making it to the end of this episode. Greatly appreciate you being here with me today on the Average Joe Finances podcast. If you haven't done so yet, make this the episode that you go leave us a 5-star rating or subscribe to our YouTube channel. The Average Joe Finances podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only. Have an outstanding day.